الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. The verse that I mentioned within my khutbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum. That the most honor of you, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are those that have the most fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has highlighted to us that honor doesn't lie in worldly gain. It doesn't lie in the one that has the best job, the best house, the best car. This may be an honor according to people. People may think that this is an honor according to what people think. But according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah says that honor according to me, or honor according in my eyes, is that person who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet alayhi salatu was salam, when speaking about taqwa, when speaking about fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, at-taqwa hahuna. And he indicated towards his heart, he said that fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in the heart of a person. Taqwa isn't that someone has a big beard, or he wears a big turban, or he wears a big jummah. These are not prerequisites of someone who is God-fearing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at your outward form. He looks at your inward form, He looks at your heart. And He looks at what state is your heart in. And in the initial and beginning ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the muttaqeen. He mentions the sifat, the descriptions of those people who are God-fearing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim dhalika al-kitabu la rayba fi hudan lil-muttaqeen. That Alif Lam Mim, and these are Alif Lam Mim, and these are huruf al-muqatta'at. And the ulama and the mufassirin, those people who commentate on the Quran, they write that these huruf only Allah and the Prophet ﷺ know the reality and know the real meaning. But ulama have interpreted and tried to make people understand what Alif Lam Mim is. And some ulama have said that the Alif, it here refers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Lam refers to Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam. And Mim, it refers to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I.e., the way that Wahi was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, i.e., it came from Allah to Sayyidina Jibreel, and from Sayyidina Jibreel it was then transferred to the heart of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That this book, there is no doubt in it. Anyone who doubts in the Quran, he is not a Muslim. He is out of the folds of Islam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That this book guides only the muttaqeen. He didn't say هُدًى لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ or هُدًى لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He didn't say that. He said هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. He said this book can only guide those people who have these qualities of taqwa. If they do not possess these qualities, then this book will not guide them. Because the Quran says, يُذِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. That the Quran, it misguides many and it guides many. And who does it misguide? It misguides those people that were muttaqeen, i.e., those people that didn't have these attributes of taqwa inside them. The Quran misguided them, even though that they were Muslims. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the following verses, He explains and He describes to us what are these qualities of those people who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that these qualities are a means that the Quran is a guidance for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those people who believe in the unseen, the ghaib. Ghaib is something that your mahsus, the ulama, when they talk about the ghaib, they say that your five senses can't comprehend ghaib. That is what is ghaib means. And ghaib means that you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that you believe in His malaika, and that you believe in the Quran and the books that were sent before the Quran to the other prophets, and that you believe in the anbiya, all of the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam all the way to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that you believe that good and bad is from Allah. And that you believe in the Day of Judgment. These are things that you need to believe in, but these are things that you haven't seen. We haven't seen Allah, but we believe in Allah. We haven't seen or haven't experienced the Day of Judgment, but we have to believe in it. We haven't seen the books that were sent to the prophets prior to the Prophet ﷺ, but we have to believe in them. Nor have we seen the Prophet ﷺ, nor have we seen the Anbiya that came before Rasulullah ﷺ, but we have to believe in them. And nor have we seen the Malaika, but we have to believe that they do exist. But our belief is dependent upon one person, and that is the Prophet ﷺ, because he has seen all of these things. And he has informed us of these things. This is why he has been given this knowledge of ghaib. And the definition of a Nabi is mukhbirun anil ghaib. The definition of a prophet is that he informs his people of unseen things. I.e., if a prophet doesn't have this ability that he has ilm al-ghaib, then he no longer can be called a prophet. So this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has this ability that he informs us of things that we cannot see, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this knowledge. So this is the first criteria for those people who the Quran will be a guidance for. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, that they believe in the unseen. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, and that they establish the prayer, and that they pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He has mentioned over 700 times that a person should establish the prayer. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam said, جُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِ فِي الصَّلَاةِ, that the coolness to my eyes has been placed in the salah. And this is the month of Rajab. And in the month of Rajab, the event that took place, that the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam went on the Al-Isra wal Mi'raj, that he went to further than Sidratul Muntaha, and he saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the gift that was given to the Muslims in Rajab was the gift of salah, was the gift of prayer. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed 50 prayers upon the Muslims. When the Prophet ﷺ came down from meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he met with Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. And this hadith is mentioned in the Sahih of Imam Muslim. And Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said that, what gift has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given to your nation? And the Prophet ﷺ replied, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed 50 prayers for my people, for my nation. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said, this would be too much for your nation. They won't be able to pray 50 times a day. They won't get the time to pray 50 times a day. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said, go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decrease the amount. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam went back and forth, and every time he came down, 5 salahs were reduced, until he came down and the number was at 5. And when he met Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said, how much is it now? And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said that I have reduced the amount from 50 to 5 now for my nation. That only 5 prayers are fard for my people, for my nation. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said that even 5 will be too much for your people. And how true are the words of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam today, that people are struggling to pray 5 times a day. But the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told me the word prays 5, you will get the reward of 50. The word prays 5, you will get the reward of 50. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, as-salatu mi'rajul mu'min, that the prayer is the mi'raj, is the ascension of a mu'min. And this is the only ibadah that a mu'min can have, where he is proximity and he is close and he is conversing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A side note to mention here, that the Prophet ﷺ said, جُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِ فِي الصَّلَاةِ, that the coolness to my eyes has been put in the salah. I.e., what is the coolness to the Prophet ﷺ's eyes is the prayer, and the coolness to our eyes is the name of the Prophet ﷺ. When we hear the name of the Prophet ﷺ, what do? We kiss our thumbs and we place it on our eyes. This is known as taqbeel al-ibhamayn, is that we kiss both our thumbs and then we place it on our eyes. The hadith for this is mentioned in the Musnad of Imam al-Firdaus. And even though the hadith is weak, it's da'if. And when muhaddiseen mention and write da'if next to a hadith, remember hadith compromises of 2 things. A hadith comprises of a sanad and a compromise of a matan. If someone says that the matan, which means the text, i.e. the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, are weak, that person is about to lose his iman.
Yeah.
Because he is saying that the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam are weak. And the Quran says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. That the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam doesn't speak from himself, he only speaks when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires him to speak. So directly he is saying not Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam words are weak, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala words are weak. And he has now denied the nas of the Quran and he is out of the fold of Islam. So when muhaddiseen write da'if, what do they mean by da'if? They say that chain, the men in that chain, the narrators in that chain, one of them is weak. And that's what's made the whole hadith weak. But muhaddiseen write that if there are many chains to one hadith, i.e. many people are narrating that one hadith from several people, then the weakness is eliminated within that sanad, and then that reaches the position of Hasan. And Hasan is after Sahih. So in the hadith of when Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala kissed his thumbs and placed them on the eyes, when Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu ta'ala was making the azan, and when he reached the stage of Ashhadu Anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and he kissed his thumbs and he placed them on his eyes, and this was done in front of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam asked him, he said, why did you do this? And Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala replied that I did this out of the love I have for you, Ya Rasulullah. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam said, that's fine. He didn't reprimand him saying, what you're doing is wrong. So we kiss our thumbs and we place them on the eyes, because the name of the Prophet ﷺ is the coolness to our eyes, but we neglect the prayer which was the coolness to the eyes of the Prophet ﷺ. We really need to check ourselves and think deeply that we are kissing that name which is the coolness to our eyes, but that thing which was the coolness to the eyes of Rasulullah we are neglecting it, and we are running away from it, we are turning our back on. And this is why we are in the problems that we are. If people pray, then half of the issues that we have will be eradicated. Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi was a very famous sultan. In the history of the sultans, he was the first person to be given this title of sultan, Mahmud Ghaznavi. And he had many ministers, but he had one minister whose name was Ayaz. And Ayaz was his favorite minister. Now the rest of the ministers were jealous of Ayaz. They said that Mahmud Ghaznavi, he's the favorite of him. And we are jealous of him. So when Mahmud Ghaznavi heard that the fellow ministers are jealous of Ayaz, he called them and he said that today I'm going to explain to you why he's my favorite. So when all of the ministers were gathered and Mahmud Ghaznavi was there, Ayaz was also present. Mahmud Ghaznavi opened all of his treasures for his people, for his ministers. So he had gold, he had money, he had slaves, he had property. And he said to his ministers, all of them, he said, place your hand on whatever of my treasures you want and I will give it to you. So he said, but you can only choose one. So some people, they put their hands on the slaves. And he said, okay, the slaves, you can take the slaves. And some ministers, they put their hands on the money of Mahmud Ghaznavi. And he said, okay, fine, you can take my money. And some people put their hands on the gold that he had, and some on the property that he had. But Ayaz was standing there, he didn't put his hand on anything. And Mahmud Ghaznavi said that, why are you not putting your hand on something? The rest are doing the same. He says, I don't want to put my hands on those things that you own. I want to put my hand on you. He says, why do you want to put your hand on me? He said, these lot are fools. Someone has put their hand on money, he will only get money. Someone is going to put their hands on the house, they will only get the houses. Someone will only put their hands on the gold, they will only get the gold. But I put my hand on you and I get you and you own all these, so that means I get all of these. So this is the reason the ulama, the reason why they mention this story is that when we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we take hold of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us everything. But if we try to sort our problems and eradicate our problems other than Allah, then we won't get the sukoon that we're looking for. And the satisfaction and the mutma'in that we are going to get will only be in prayer. So if we turn to the prayer and we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then in return Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us everything. So the second description that the Quran says that those people who establish their prayers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those people who believe in the unseen. وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ. Those people who establish the prayer. These two are qualities for those people of muttaqeen. And those people who else? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And those people who give in the way of Allah, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. So they're just giving back in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. And we know from the Sahaba, especially Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq and Sayyidina Usman, that these were two Sahaba that they would give everything in the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there were some Sahaba that they left everything just for the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. I.e. they were very rich prior to Islam. They had a lot of money, but they gave up their wealth for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because they knew if they have the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, then they have everything. Hatim al-Ta'i was someone who was very rich, and his son one day was sitting with Imam Hassan, the grandson of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and he says to Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that my father was such a generous man that he had 10 doors to his palace, and if a person came to the first door and didn't find and wasn't satisfied with how much he got, he would go to the second door and the third door until he reached the 10th door, and then he was satisfied. Imam Hassan said, what kind of generosity is this? What kind of sakhawa is this? That someone has to go from the first door until the 10th door to satisfy himself, to get what he wants. But he said, my grandfather is that individual. Someone came once to him and he was satisfied for the rest of his life.
Subhanallah.
And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, someone came once to him and they didn't need anything else again. And from those Sahaba that gave up the wealth that they had was Mus'ab bin Umayr. Mus'ab bin Umayr was a young man. His mother was very rich. She was a kafira. She didn't accept Islam. And she heard that her son has accepted Islam. So she stripped him of his wealth. She stripped him of his clothes. She said that if you want to go about and preach this religion, then you'll have to leave everything behind. And Mus'ab bin Umayr, the Mu'arikhin, the historians, they write that when this individual would wear clothes, he'd wear the flashiest clothes of that time. And he wouldn't wear something again if he wore it. He would only wear something once in his life and then he would throw it away. But when he accepted Islam and he came back, at Fatih Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ saw him. And Mus'ab bin Umayr was wearing a chadar which had holes in it. And it was ripped. And the Prophet ﷺ said, is this the same Mus'ab bin Umayr that I used to see walking in the streets of Medina al-Munawwara, and he used to wear the flashiest clothes of all the time? And the Sahaba said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. He has given everything up for you, Ya Rasulullah. And these are people, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Those who give in the way of Allah, and those who give up all their wealth for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our teachers, they used to tell us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives wealth to everyone. He gives it to the one who believes in Him, and He gives the one that denies Him. He gives wealth to everyone. Some of the billionaires, the millionaires of this time, they don't believe in God. They are atheists. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives wealth to everyone, but He only takes wealth from those He loves. He gives wealth to everyone, but He only takes wealth from those He loves. i.e., if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking wealth from you, then don't think this as a burden. Think this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves me and He likes taking my wealth from me. And that wealth is not our wealth, it's His wealth initially anyway. He's just taking back what was given to us. So the third quality that the Quran mentions, that the muttaqeen are those people who give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the fourth quality is وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ وَذَلِّ الْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ يُوقِنُونَ. That they believe in what was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. And they believe in what was revealed to the other prophets, i.e. the Torah, Zabur, Injil. They believe in these books as well. And the final quality which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, He said that there will be people that they have yaqeen in the day of judgment. i.e. there will be a day when we will be called back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will take our account, what we did in this dunya, how we lived and how long we lived for. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take account of that from us. And Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was from the Ashra Mubashara. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, لَوْ كَانَ بَعْدِ نَبِيٌّ لَكَانَ عُمَرُ بْنُ الْخَطَّابِ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَنْهُ. That if there was a prophet to come after me, even though the Khatam al-Nabuwwah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam has now been sealed, but if for argument's sake a Nabi was to come, then it would be Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab is that man who said that if it's said on the day of judgment, even though he was guaranteed paradise. He said, if it is said on the day of judgment that everyone will go to paradise and one person will go to hell, he says, I have so much fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the one person will be me. But he said, if it is said that everyone will go to the hellfire and one will go to heaven, he says, I have so much certainty and so much hope in Allah that that one person will be me. And Iman is a balance between Raja and Khawf. And Iman bayna Raja'i wal Khawfi, the ulama write that Iman is that one balances his hope and his fear. And that is the definition of Iman. And that was a lesson for us. Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab was teaching us that we are people that are not guaranteed anything. And we need to be worried about our akhirah, what answer we will give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those people who possess these 5 qualities, they are those people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they are the muttaqeen and the Quran is a guidance for them. And those people are honored in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَقُولُ قَوْلِ هَذَا وَأَسْتَغْفِرُ لِي وَلَكُمْ وَآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. آمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا يا غفار، واستر عيوبنا يا ستار، زدنا رزقنا يا رزاق، وارحم حالنا يا رحمن، واقبل توبتنا قبل الموت، يا غفرانك بعد الموت. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. آمين برحمتك يا رب.